She-Hulk premieres tomorrow on Disney Plus, and I have seen the first 4 episodes. So today we're going to discuss what you should expect from the latest MCU series. Welcome MCU fans, and thank you so much for clicking on my review for She-Hulk, the latest MCU series where we follow Jennifer Walters, an attorney who specializes in superhuman-oriented legal cases who must also navigate the complicated life of a single 30-something who just also happens to be a green 6-foot and 7-inch superpowered Hulk. Before my review properly gets started, there will be absolutely no spoilers in this video for any of the first 4 episodes. We will have weekly spoiler reviews when the episodes drop on Disney Plus, so make sure you tune in for that. And for reference, I have never been the biggest She-Hulk fan in the comics. While the Hulk is my absolute favorite Marvel Comics character, I always found She-Hulk very derivative. So while I love the MCU and I'm always open to what they want to deliver, I was not super excited for this series. I love Tatiana Maslany as an actress, but this just isn't a character I love or that I follow thoroughly in the comics. I know a lot about her story because I've read a lot of her within Avengers teams and whenever she shows up in Hulk stories, but I've never been a follower or avid fan of She-Hulk as a whole, so this wasn't one of my most anticipated MCU projects overall. I just went in with an open mind, hoping for the best and hoping for a great new addition to my favorite cinematic franchise. And before anything else in this review, we have to address the elephant in the room, the visuals on She-Hulk, where the internet completely obliterated Marvel online to a point rightfully so, because in that first trailer, She-Hulk just didn't look right. She didn't look good whatsoever. And while I can't tell you she looks great in these first 4 episodes, when it comes to the skin, textures, wrinkles, just all the details on Jennifer Walters herself are stellar on her and Hulk himself, who occupies a bulk of the first episode's runtime. Really, when she's walking around, interacting with the environment around her, people around her, whether they're real or also created through VFX, spotless in my opinion. It looks fantastic, as great as it ever does in these MCU shows and movies. To me, it's the hair that looks off, and it looks like Star Wars Rebels kind of hair. It waves around when she walks, moves, or there's some kind of air current going on, but really it feels too solid and unrealistic in movement, where it lacks detail and feels slightly out of focus, where it doesn't come across as real from a visual standpoint. But this show does have other real issues, but also some really good qualities. But before I elaborate any more on my review, I need you to start a conversation on She-Hulk in the comments below. Are you excited? Have you seen any of the episodes by the time you find this review? Drop them down there. And if you are enjoying this review, if you love MCU movies and TV, this is the place to be. So consider clicking that subscribe button down there and you won't miss any future conversations on your favorite MCU movies and TV. My overall thoughts from the first 4 episodes of She-Hulk are that this is a slower paced show than I thought it was going to be, due to a looser story structure where it presents these more isolated but fun episodes following this one central character. It feels more procedural, which fits the tone of the series, but it doesn't necessarily create for the most compelling overall narrative, which I feel is exactly what the show is missing so far. What the show does have is world building. This entire series is world building. It organically injects itself into the MCU, explains what is happening while exploring new areas we haven't seen before, like culture and societal infrastructures that are affected by the movies and TV shows that we see, and it does this with extremely clever writing that clearly has its finger on the pulse on what makes the MCU work and what makes fans tick, for good and for bad, which I love. It's quite the insightful show, really, to my surprise, in a tongue-in-cheek, wink at the audience kind of way, where the jokes and sense of humor don't necessarily deliver big laugh-out-loud moments. They're funny, but they're more clever. You can tell they thought about these jokes. You can tell there was effort put into writing. Again, it's insightful in that sense. The meta aspects as well are very well handled, and in a sense, tamer than I thought they were going to be, where they more so present a peek at actual behind-the-scenes elements, casting, writing, plot structure, fan reactions, and interactions. These latter two are going to be fun as we see the series come out week to week and interact about it on Twitter. This show really understands its universe and it understands its fandom. The good and the bad of it. And sometimes it can get grating. Sometimes there are some cringy moments in the show, which we'll get to, but the humor overall really displays effort and cleverness. With that out of the way, let's discuss Jen Walters / She-Hulk herself, played by Tatiana Maslany. If you're like me and have seen Orphan Black, you will not be surprised to hear that she has incredible range on screen. You will, however, still be impressed by the range that she displays, where she is so crucial for that balance between humor and drama to be struck correctly, and also she has insane chemistry with literally everyone. With Bruce Banner, with Wong, with Tim Roth, with all the new characters that we meet throughout these first 4 episodes, and really with us, the audience, as she breaks the fourth wall, where again, it makes sense within the context of the show when she does break that fourth wall right from the beginning. In the first episode, where she needs to catch us up, because the first episode in the show is more of a prologue than anything else, which leads me to discussing kind of the bits and pieces of each of the episodes that I've seen without spoilers. The first episode takes care of catching us up with Jen Walters' life so the show can take place. It features one of the most fun action set pieces I have seen in all of the MCU in quite a while, and some key moments that made me go, oh, okay, where's this going? So while it doesn't really kick the show off to the races from the go, with its sense of humor and style, it's actually a really good structure to take the backstory out of the way first so it can go full throttle afterwards, which it also doesn't do that. The second episode, however, does properly kick off the show. To me, it is the best out of these 4, where it lays out all the characters, character dynamics, world building, story threads are set off in here, and we start with the buildup of all these characters and how these stories all connect, and the balance of humor and drama is most on point here. And once more, does feature some moments where I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Where is that going now? The third episode is tricky. I found it to be the best at setting up and teasing an overarching story with what is happening to Jen Walters, tying already established story threads to a bigger mystery, but it is overall the worst, as it focuses more on a joke trial with supporting characters, and the humor overall does not land, featuring some absolutely cringe-worthy moments, including the post-credit scene. The fourth episode gets things back on track with a more intimate Jen Walters focused narrative, where she has to balance being a superhero in the MCU, a lawyer handling superhumans nobody else will, taking Wong on as a client, and wanting a love life for herself, how all of these interfere with one another, bringing back that clever humor and interesting conflict. With that recap on my overall thoughts on each episode, let's move on to my problems with this series. And the issues I have with She-Hulk bog down to essentially a series of events that happen to and around She-Hulk, but she barely feels proactive in pushing the story forward. On top of that, everything that does happen to other characters around Jen looks and sounds more interesting than her actual story, because it is lacking that central through line to drive the show forward that we already talked about, where all these cameos feel like they have more concrete narratives than Jen herself. They don't absolutely take the spotlight away, you're always focused on Jen and her experiencing these events, but it comes to a point where I question, why is Jen still here? Why are we not following Wong's story or Bruce's story even? It's not until the end of episode 4 where she and us, the audience, are presented with what may actually be the overarching narrative and conflict of the series. And if it is what happens at the end of episode 4, it's quite an interesting and lame conflict at that. I just don't think the show has quite found the right balance yet, 4 episodes in, at being this funny, quirky superhero procedural, but also injecting a central through line that connects all these small stories, all these small narratives with this central character in it, where she doesn't feel properly proactive. Where I like this actress, I like the character she is playing, but I need her to feel more important in her own story. That's another issue. This feels like her own story. She's just not driving it forward. It feels like her story is focusing a lot on these other small stories. And I need something to grab me. I'm enjoying this, I'm having fun, I'm happy to turn on these episodes. I'm just not fully engaged in Jen Walters' arc yet, because it's very unclear and muddled what her arc actually is. I'm not in love with She-Hulk, but it has immense potential. It's funny, clever, and insightful in a way that breaks down the walls that separate the fandom from the universe we love so much. It's a light, fun journey into less explored aspects of the MCU, where the small scale works in its favor, but right now I'm just not seeing it serving a grander, character-driven purpose. Those are my thoughts on the first 4 episodes of She-Hulk. Tomorrow there will be a spoiler review when the first episode drops on Disney+, so let me know your thoughts on that video, on this video, and thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the weekly She-Hulk reviews, and big thanks to my channel members for always supporting this channel. So until tomorrow, love each other, and love the movies.